This podcast is part of the Batman Universe Podcast Network, hosted by the BatmanUniverse.net. Check out everything related to Batman and the entire Bat family at the BatmanUniverse.net, including news and original content related to comics, movies, television, merchandise, video games, and more. Also, check out some of the other unique podcasts that TBU has to offer. Consider supporting this podcast by becoming a patron on Patreon. Even $1 can go a long way in supporting this content that you enjoy. Look for a link over at thebatmanuniverse.net to offer your support now. And now, on with the show.
How's the soup?
Excuse me?
The soup.
Oh.
How is it?
Oh, it's great. It's great. Could you pass the salt?
Sure.
Thanks.
Did you have a hard time finding the house?
Oh, no. No, it's no problem.
Good.
Do you like eating in here?
Oh, yeah. You wanna know the truth? I don't think I've ever been in this room before. Do you want to get out of here?
Yes.
You don't like the Drake?
I hate the Drake.
I love the Drake.
How could you not like the Drake?
Who's the Drake?
Who's the Drake?
The Drake is good. Do you like the Drake?
I love the Drake.
What about the Drake?
Oh, screw the Drake. I love the Drake.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Robin, Everyone Loves the Drake comic podcast. This podcast will take a chronological look at the third boy to wear the mantle of Robin, Tim Drake. We will follow his journey in the pages of the 90s 2000 ongoing Robin series and other notable comics of that era. We will also take a look at other Tim Drake appearances in DC Comics, new and old, to find out why everyone loves the Drake.
Good for them. Love the Drake.
Got to love the Drake.
I'm impressed.
What can I say? I'm irresistible.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Robin, Everyone Loves the Drake comic podcast. I'm your host, Rob Myers. Welcome to episode 89. This podcast is brought to you by the BatmanUniverse.net, your home for all things Batman, whom is celebrating 80 years, and Tim Drake, that is celebrating 30 years. We're part of the Batman Podcast Network. You can find us over there at batmanpodcastnetwork.com. You can get a hold of us on all the social media outlets on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and you can email into the show at robineltdpodcast@yahoo.com, and also check out our Facebook page. And with us today is my good buddy, Terence O'Neill. How are you doing today, sir?
Hey, I'm doing great, Rob. And I almost said Ryan, but sorry, because I was about to say Ryan is not with us here today. Unfortunately, he can't make it. But part of why we wanted to have a three-team show was, that if one of us can't make it, the show goes on, and it's not just one of us talking to themselves for an hour and a half, which has been done. Yeah, it's been done. I wanted to mention something real quick right off the bat, and that is I wasn't able to make a couple of episodes back in November and December, and Rob and Ryan really picked up the baton, the torch, the comic book, whatever you want to say, and ran with it and filled in for me. And it was kind of fun when those episodes came out because I got to kind of listen as a fan, like back in the old days. It's different when you're on it and then you listen, and you're the way you listen is just totally different than if you're just listening to a podcast. It was a lot of fun. But one thing I noticed is that, and you probably just heard this, listeners, is that before the episode, there is a commercial for the BatmanUniverse.net's Patreon. Yeah. And I just want to let everybody know, if they support the BatmanUniverse.net. That money doesn't go to Rob and I. That's not our Patreon. That's
No.
the BatmanUniverse.net, who hosts our podcast, and they host a lot of other podcasts, and that money goes to help Dustin pay for the cost of running the site and having ours up, and then small fee. It's not a lot, but the small fee that he charges us to be on there, hopefully that can be smaller or non-existent at all if people support it. So I just wanted to say, if you do support the Patreon, which I highly recommend, and the reason why is because you listen to this podcast or some of the other podcasts on the network, when you support it in the Patreon, just send an email or just send a little note in the link saying which podcast you listen to, or that you heard it on the Drake, so that they know that like we're doing our part and we're not the anchor bringing down the ship here of the website. But it is a great website. It's great to get a lot of great reviews, and especially with what's going on in the comics and the merchandise and the news and lots of great stuff. And speaking of news, this is our 89th episode. It's hard to believe. 89. It happens a lot. But 89 is a very special number to any Batman fan, especially fans of the cinematic universe of Batman. As we all know, that was when the Michael Keaton and Jack Nicholson 89 Batman, which like started this whole just explosion of comic book fandom and movies, which has not subsided yet. It just grows and grows and grows. So, Rob, though, you have some special news out about 89 and something that's near and dear to your heart, toys, right?
Oh my gosh, yeah. The bane of my existence, and I love it every single minute of we've had that discussion, I think, recently in the last episode of, okay, I even went as far as to sold some Star Wars stuff that I haven't had, that I've had in totes for years and stuff like that I got to a point, I'm like, I could not tell you what's in these totes. How much does it really mean to me if I can't, if it's not on display throughout the room, I must not like it as much, but of course all of my Batman stuff still is. So I've been collecting a lot of the, long story short, a lot of the Mattel Multiverse figures, and they've kind of had their ups and downs. Like some years are really great, some years are poor QC, or Mattel is unfortunately known for not getting the scale of figures right. Like they may make a really big, tall Tim Drake and a really short Batman, or, just some weird things every now and then. But this last year of 2019 is Mattel's final year to make toys with the DC banner. They call them Boys Toys, or the Boy Toys license. And if you've been reading online, that's going to go to Spin Masters, and McFarlane Toys is going to get a chance to do some toys. So in this last year, with it being 2019, it's Batman's, 80th birthday. And on this show, we've been saying it's Tim Drake's birthday. And I'm like, oh, maybe they'll come out with a Tim Drake figure. And there was one previewed last year from Rebirth, and it was just in prototype form, and prototype doesn't mean all the time he's going to get a figure. It means we're thinking about it. But hearing that they were losing the license, I quickly thought, yeah, we're probably not going to see that figure. Well, guess what happened on Saturday? Mattel dropped their line of figures, at least their first batch. There's a lot more figures that we could get into, and I won't do that on this show. But the 4 figures that they have announced, I'm trying to pull up my phone here, make sure I have them all correct. I'll start from the least exciting and work my way up to the most exciting, and even the least exciting is still pretty good. Mattel is going to do a Batman the Animated Series Poison Ivy figure, which seems kind of weird that their first animated series figure is going to be Poison Ivy, but I get it. Rather than have, 5 Batmans in the line, it's nice to have some diversity. I'm not sure what the next figure is. It's a Riddler in the classic, Frank Gorshin, early 70s, 80s bodysuit Riddler with all the question marks all over it. Some people think it's the Superpowers era. It's a nod to that, and that kind of goes into the next 2 figures. Actually, I'll say the next 2. Tim Drake is getting made as Red Robin in a figure from the Rebirth line. Now, he's supposed to be attached to a bigger multiverse line of figures that's supposed to have Red Hood, Katana, Alfred, Dick Grayson, Batman, and those figures were not shown at the show, so I don't know if this is the first batch that's ready. So for me, getting another Tim Drake Robin figure, that's really exciting. And then if that wasn't enough, Mattel is doing their homage, if you will, to the 1989 Toy Biz Batman 89 movie figures. So they're doing a Michael Keaton and a Jack Nicholson Joker. Not only are they doing that, but they're giving all of the classic accessories that came with those figures, the squirting flower from the Joker, the Batarang, and the grapple gun. That just kind of sent everybody. Those were two, actually, other than Red Robin, the other four figures were not mentioned at all previously up until this point. All the figures that I rattled off being Red Hood were ones that people thought, oh wow, that's what Mattel is going to show. So of all of those figures that we kind of previously knew about, they pulled Tim Drake, which I have to believe Mattel probably is smart enough to know this is Tim Drake's anniversary as well. He is also 30 years old, as the 89 figures are. So the 89 figures just kind of blew everybody away. So I know you don't collect a lot of action figures, Terrence, but how cool is it that, you know, Batman 89 is celebrating 30 years, and to kind of commemorate it's 89's 30th anniversary, it's Batman's 80th anniversary. We got a little Tim Drake rolled into there. So 89, like you said, is a very, very special year. And to top it off, it's Batman's 80th. So do you have any thoughts about any of that? Or are you going, Rob's going to have to set up a Patreon account just for all the action figures?
Sorry, I wasn't listening. Could you repeat what you just said? No, I'm just kidding. Yeah,
this is where, if Terrence was in the room, I might have actually slapped him for the first time.
This is where the action figures come in handy when you throw them at me, right? Yeah. I love the look, and I mentioned this to you before the podcast off air. I love the look of the Batman 89 toys. I guess they're the called cards, I guess is what there are. Yeah. With the gold and the look. And if my favorite thing about them is Bob the Goon. If you look on the back of it, it has Bob's last name, which I forget what it was, but it has like his full name. I think it's Robert whatever or something, you know. And I was like, that's a good trivia question. But I want to know, who decided which Red Robin costume would be made a figure? I wonder how they decide that, because I feel like, and this could be my own personal bias, but I feel like Tim Drake fans, if you had to say which is the best Red Robin costume, they would pick the Batman Reborn, like the series right before the New 52. I think it lasted about 20 issues or so. Yeah. Like that costume.
The Kingdom Come.
Yeah, the Kingdom Come. That one I feel like is the best Red Robin costume, and I feel like the New 52 one was kind of not liked by most fans. So
except Rob Myers.
Yeah. Oh, do you prefer the New 52 over the...
I only say that because, to answer your question, Mattel has made a pre-New 52 Red Robin with the cowl. I'll put it up on the Instagram account, and I'll throw it up on Twitter. So they have already made one.
Okay.
They got the body size wrong, but I think, well, actually, not. I know the reason that they're doing this version is that they have started doing all of the Rebirth characters. Gotcha. So there's a Clayface Connect and Connect wave, and currently right now there is, I'm looking at it on my wall, there's Batwoman, Batwing, Clayface, Spoiler. So Red Robin and Katana are the only two figures, or excuse me, Red Robin and Orphan are the only two figures that haven't been made in their Rebirth costumes by Mattel for the James Tynion run. So this is actually helping complete that team of figures. So if you want to have, you know, James Tynion's comic book behind all of these figures, which I know a nerd that does, this is why they made this Tim Drake figure in particular, just because they've already done... Mattel has gone deep with all their figures.
Okay.
We've already gotten the classic Pixie boots. We've got a Dick Grayson and a Jason Todd. We've had the Grant Morrison Pillhead, Red Hood. Tim Drake has had all three of his figures in the classic 90s, the red and black, and then the Red Robin costume, and now this one as well.
You know what's funny is I never think of the James Tynion run as Red Robin. I always think of that as just Robin. Just it had a double R. It was just like a silhouette or something, you know. Yeah.
And I partly think that was due to them wanting to have a Robin on the team, and they didn't want it to be Damian, because Damian was doing Super Sons.
Sons and Teen Titans.
And Teen Titans. So to be like, I want to have a Robin, and I want him to look like a Robin, but he's still technically Red Robin, which I think is why that's gone into Young Justice, where Bendis is just like, let's just call him Robin. We'll have two Robins like we have two Flashes, and we had two Batmans for a time. So I'm fine with that. So I think that was the reason for the Tim Drake figure. It kind of concerns me that I'm hoping we're going to see the rest of all of those figures. You know, Alfred was also supposed to be made in that wave, and there was supposed to be a Killer Croc, and a KG Beast was supposed to be in there as a nice big full wave. So I don't know if this is Mattel going, all right, these are our last 5 figures, and then we're done for 2019, or are they going to continue to do stuff throughout the year? And this is just the first Toy Fair reveal. We haven't gone to, San Diego Comic-Con. We haven't seen New York Comic-Con reveals yet, so I imagine there's probably going to be stuff. And if you were Mattel, and this is your last year, and Batman's a big seller, I think you would probably just throw everything you can at it, money-wise, that you have available to spend. But getting the 89 figures, I think, is a really cool thing if you really love the 89 film, and I don't know how many Bat fans don't love the 89 movie. Since this is our 89th episode, just real briefly before we get into the body of the show, what are some of your favorite moments from the 89 film?
So I have a list of my top favorite moments here from 89. So I have when Mr. Freeze freezes the city, but then has the cure for Alfred.
That's
I had
a good one.
When Batman picks up that machine gun and kills all those people to save Superman's mother. I have when Catwoman eats the bird. When Riddler created that mind control device and takes over Gotham City.
I don't know how that's not number one.
I know. And then number one would be, I don't know, I'm trying to think of something from a different movie and I blank. But yeah, anyway, I'm just here again, Rob. Slap number 2. I pick up a heavy action figure to throw at me. Yeah. I don't know. You know what's funny is, as much as I love the movie, to me, what I remember most is the experience.
Yeah.
Waiting for it, the build up for it. I remember, and I've said this on other episodes, so I won't belabor it, but I remember coming home from school and my mom had taped Good Morning America on the old VCR, VHS, because they had the very first teaser. I didn't even know what a trailer was or teaser or anything like that. And it was the scene where Batman crashes through the window at the museum and then stares at the Joker and then shoots his I don't even know what that is. That
probably a grappling gun
grappling gun thing to get out of there. Which I always was why doesn't he beat up the Joker? Why is he leaving? Why is he running away? But it still was awesome to see. Oh my! I watched that again and again and again and again. And then going to see it on opening day and seen it a couple times and getting it on VHS. It was one of the very first movies that I ever actually owned the legitimate real movie.
Yeah.
And movies used to be priced really, really expensive to be sold to video stores. And that was the first one that, maybe the second, I think E.T. might have been the first one.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So that was really marketed at a price point for people to buy. And I think it was $25. And I got it on sale for, $19.99, but my parents bought it, I think around Thanksgiving-ish time, as a Christmas present for me. So I had to wait till Christmas to get it and open it up and watch it. And man, I watched the heck out of that thing. So that's more what I remember is all the stuff around it. And of course, it was just a fabulous movie. It was just fantastic. I loved it.
Yeah, I think my memory's just about the same as all of the hype build up around it. All of a sudden, it sounds cliche. We've probably said it a million times on this show, and Kevin Smith has probably said it a billion times, but the bat signal was everywhere. You couldn't pick up just the normal paper and not see an ad for it or somebody writing an article about it. And
or wearing a T-shirt or getting it carved in their head. People were getting it as their haircut. Remember that? Shaved the bat signal in their head. That was really popular. Yeah.
People in school that had, I never thought they had any idea who the Batman character was, or we've said before, the year before they thought it was dumb and stupid. We would get thrown in our locker, and that next summer going back to school, it was oh my gosh, did you see Batman? And I'm do you remember our conversation a year ago when I was wearing this very same shirt, but all of a sudden we got street cred build up. We were into Batman before Batman became cool. So I think my memories are the same as yours. It's just the hype. Yeah, the movie was great, but I just couldn't believe that we were getting a Batman like this. And I don't know if I said on this show before, but the old movie theater that we used to have in town, it was a really poor design. It looked cool, but it was like 10 feet off the ground. They had these columns of stairs that went up. There was like 3 sets of stairs to get up to the top of the theater. My mom used to complain about it all the time. She's like, I'm going to the movies, not trying to climb a mountain. Like it was like a chore for some people back before the days of, needing ramps for the elderly or the disabled. Like there was no wheelchair access for this, movie theater, which is probably why I got torn down. But I just remember going up the steps for Batman 89 and thinking like this was the longest set of steps. Like I could not race to the top. But once you got to the top of the steps, right before you got in, they had this giant cardboard bat signal out there with, it says, Nicholson, Keaton, Batman. Had, Tim Burton's name down at the bottom of it, but the bat signal was huge. Like I couldn't stretch my arms wide enough. And I asked my mom, like, I'm going to ask him if we can have this. And my mom was like, no, we do not need a 5-foot bat signal. Like, where are you going to put it? But that was pretty cool. Yeah, that experience. And it was almost like, hearing like the church choir in the background or something like that and walking in the theater. And I just remember, I think they played like 2 trailers before the movie. And I'm thinking these trailers are so long nowadays. You get like an hour's worth of trailers before the movie and you sit there long enough to go, what movie are we seeing again? Yeah. And they actually show like commercials and stuff. Back then we just stared at it a blank screen for 20 minutes. And what I remember too is like at 89 was the peak of MTV, and kids our age, high schoolers, middle schoolers, we'd watch hours and hours and hours of MTV every day. And MTV was running a contest to win the Batmobile, if you remember that. I think we talked about that, like steal the Batmobile. And they would show that commercial like every commercial break, like you win the Batmobile. And then the Prince Bat Dance video was shown like every 2 or 3 hours that would come on. So yeah, it was just like everywhere of this hype of like the movie's coming, and you didn't have YouTube where you could go and watch the trailer over and over again, and you didn't have like all these spoilers and stuff. So we really kind of had a notion of what was in the movie, but we didn't know what was in the movie. Nowadays you can like find out everything about the movie before it happened, or someone speculating what's going to happen and all these things. Like, oh, you know what? And let me lead into this. How many times can like the nerd community that I am a proud member of just like fall for the whole like, oh my God, it's in a commercial, it's in a trailer, this means something. Like Rogue One, that whole trailer, like none of that was in the movie. Avengers Infinity War, like a lot of that stuff wasn't in the movie. I think there's like scenes of like the Hulk running into battle, right? They're not in the movie. Like Batman v Superman, Justice League, like not in the movie. So can we just calm down about the fact that Harley Quinn has got a dog tag that says Bruce on it? Like, that doesn't mean anything right now. I mean, Aquaman was on a poster that said Unite the Seven, and we have no idea what that even means or anything. Or people are like now like, oh, it meant the 7 Seas. I know. I think it meant the 7 members of the Justice League for the 3 movies that they were going to make, and only only did 1.5. Yeah, somehow made 1.5 and mixed it into 1, or what, I don't know. But number 7 was Green Lantern, not the Mediterranean Sea, people. So everybody just calm down till the movie comes out. But I guess it's just part of the fun. But man, people just lose their mind over that. You even posted something of like, calm down, people. It's just a image. Yeah, it's even like me getting all excited, like when are we going to get this Tim Drake figure? Like it'll happen. It'll calm down the people instantly after wanting something. They want to start ripping it apart. And I'm like, now, wait a minute. Just 2 months ago, you were jumping up and down. Can't wait for this thing. And now I think sometimes the hype it puts you so far out of perspective of what the thing is, rather than go, oh, cool, here's this thing I want to enjoy. Now let's just check my excitement at the door and not overhype myself, because usually when you do that, you're bound to let yourself down, rather than, I don't know if it was the actual, and sometimes it is the actual product where you're like, man, this is a piece of garbage. Yeah. But sometimes it can, with perspective, you can go back and watch something that you absolutely hated and go, it's not so bad, but it still could be. But this, I was glad was not the case with Batman 89, and that we're here. One final thing before we go on.
I've got something else too. I'm I'm going to get all Hugo Strange psychologist on you, but go ahead with yours.
Oh,
yeah.
Awesome. Well, I want to put this out there before I forget. This is our 89th episode, which means we have 10 more before 100 episodes, which it still boggles my mind that we've almost done 100 of these things. So I'm throwing this out there for listeners of what is something. I'm taking a little page from Andy DeGenova's. When he hit 100, he recently hit 200. What is something that you guys would like us to talk about or do? Is there something we haven't done on the show? Is there a Tim Drake or Batman comic that you're like, wow, I'd really like you guys to cover this. I don't know if you're going to do that. So I'm going to open the doors up to the listeners of just ideas. I've got some in the back of my mind, and I'm sure Terence and Ryan do. I'm trying to get a couple of interviews. It would be cool if those come through. One is a definite. The second one I don't want to say, again, like hype. It's like a trailer. Like, Rob said you were going to interview Dan DiDio. No, I'm not saying that. Although part of me would want to. Like, Dan, sit down. I got a lot of stuff I want to say.
Topic number 1, Walmart. What the heck?
Right. So I just want to throw that out there. Be kind of thinking about it. Send us an email. Hit us up on Twitter at ELTD Podcast of an idea for our 100th episode. So what do you got, Terence?
So, little Hugo Strange, hop on the couch here, and I'm going to crack into the mind of Rob Myers. About the toys, my biggest problem with the toys and collecting the toys is that you'll show me one of those like Tim Drake things, and then I want it, and then I go hunt for it, and I want you go here, this store. Then I finally get it. It's so exciting to hunt, and then a month later I'm like, yeah, why do I have that? It's like it's all about the hunt and finding it, and then the letdown of like when you actually have it. Do you experience that as well, or do you find anything with that, or is that just my problem?
Sometimes, but more times than not, now I've got Tim Drake. Oh, and now there's Connor Kent Superboy. Oh, and then they're going to do an Impulse figure. I could have Young Justice. Well, if I've got those 3, then they're going to make the Ray. I probably ought to get the Ray for Young Justice. Oh, I can put those 3 and make a Teen Titans team. But if I've got Teen Titans, then I probably need Dick Gray. Sometimes it's just the problem keeps going and going and going. And then I sit back and go, I'm really a Batman and Tim Drake fan. Why do I have 5 Green Lanterns?
Yeah.
Which, I've kind of pulled myself back out of that. There have been very few times where I'm trying not to be a regret buyer, because then that just depresses me. If I'm willing to spend the money, I want to be able to look at this thing on my wall or my shelf and go, I am glad I spent the money that I did, and not go, oh, great, I could have spent it on something else. Because if all I really wanted, that I can just go online and right-click and save all these pictures, and then I've collected them all,
Yeah.
And then stuck them to a wall. So I really try and tell myself, if I'm willing to spend that much money on something, even if it's $5, I'll sit there with it and go, do I really need this? Am I going to regret this purchase later? Or what my wife doesn't like to get into, the head of Rob Myers, is when it's like, oh, I'm going to leave this in a box. She's like, you're not going to take it out? It's like, well, it could be a collector's thing. I've always been, a toy needs to be loved. It needs to be out of its box, and I'm going to put it in a, not to throw shade towards you, but some of the people that are buying the Funko Pops, and then they're putting the Funko Pops in a pop case, and I'm like, take it out, let it breathe, with having a million of them, or I've got a decent handful of Pops, and I like to get them out of the box and kind of set them up and display them somehow. There's a few that I have, but to me, a toy is always a sad thing when I see it in a box. I'm like, release the Kraken. So that's always kind of my thing. If I have to be okay with spending the money and not regret it afterwards. And then once I've got it, I'm like, that sucker's coming out of the package. It needs to be displayed, even if it's in a vanilla pose. But usually I want to kind of pair them with different groups and make little different teams and stuff. So that's the inside of Rob Myers.
Yeah, one of the nice things about the Pops that I liked when I started collecting them was the fact that you can actually take them out of the package and then put them back in the package without destroying the package. It's not like a card where once it's out, it's done forever. I have actually kind of stopped buying the Pops, and I've actually been trying to pare down my collection and sell some on eBay, just for the simple fact that I'm like you, I'm a completist. Like, if it's got Batman on the front, and then on the back it says collect these 7 others or collect them all, kids, then I'm like, I've got to find all these 7s. But the problem is Funko has got so many exclusives and so many chases and so many different variants that it's so hard to complete them. And I get this thing of like, well, if I can't have them all, then why do I even want any of them? And what's really frustrating is they have a lot of Hot Topic exclusives, Target exclusive, Walmart exclusive, and you can't find them. Like that, I've said, it's all about the hunt, but then you can't find them. And then you go on, I used to go on eBay, but now if you go on like Facebook Marketplace and some of these other marketplaces, you can actually see more of who's selling them. Like you can click on their Facebook profile and see who's selling them. And I can't tell you how many times you see like, oh, Target exclusive, somebody's selling it. I click on their profile. Guess where it says they work? They work at Target. You know, they work at, and it's like, are they just producing these exclusives so employees can supplement their, low wages? Like, so it kind of takes a lot of the fun out of it. So I've been paring down and cutting back on those, and it's I don't know, it's like, it's a weird thing where it's like, it's really hard to sell. It's like, you got all this emotional attachment and all this stuff. It's really hard to sell. But then once you sell a couple, then you start getting like addicted to selling. You're like, maybe I could sell this one, maybe I can get that one, maybe so maybe I'll buy another one just to sell it. Maybe now I'm a flipper. Like, it just like it goes a little crazy. But it was funny, I was watching this YouTuber who I forgot his name. I wish I'll tell you in some other episode because I'd like to give credit for it. But they were talking about Saturday morning cartoons. It's a toy. It's a guy on YouTube on toy. I'll look it up and I'll see if I can find it. You've probably watched him because he does these like history of toys, and they're so good. Like he does the whole thing on He-Man, and I mean, it's just really good. And he was talking about how like the Saturday morning cartoons came out in the 70s, and like psychiatrists and psychologists and everything were all worried about like what effect would all this programming have on kids, and what would that lead to. And it's like, we were those kids, and now we've grown up, and like all that advertising and program has us spending like hundreds or thousands of dollars a year still on these toys, even though we're in our like middle ages here. So I was kind of wondering like, I wonder, maybe somebody had a point. Like, maybe I would have got a PhD and, like done something with my life. But instead, I've got lots of plastic representations of characters I love. Woohoo!
Yeah.
So, anyway, I'm taking this to a weird place. I think people just have a natural desire to collect. Like, this is just what our generation does. Before us, people collected salt shakers and plates and teaspoons and all kinds of stuff, or matchbooks. I remember as a kid, a lot of adults would collect matchbooks. Every restaurant or place would have matches for free that you could collect, and they don't do that anymore. So I think it's just a natural thing, and this is just our generation. But it's kind of interesting, the psychology behind collecting and how each person kind of collects for a different reason, but yet we're all collecting for like the same reason as well. So it's kind of interesting. Well,
my wife's other word for it is hoarders, and I'm like, it's just that need for wanting something, like reclaiming part of your childhood, or this is sometimes it's just simple as, I just need that. Not that I need this. You tell yourself you need it, but I just want it for the simple reason is I have money and I want it.
But it's weird too, like with comic books, I enjoy reading the comic books, but I enjoy bagging and boarding the comic books. I enjoy putting them in the long box in alphabetical order and numeric order. I love pulling out books and seeing like years worth of covers and runs, and remembering like, oh yeah, I remember when I bought this one, or remember that one, or I don't remember this one at all. Let me take a look at this one. It's same thing with like collecting toys and stuff. Like it's kind of fun to like see the runs together, see the figures together, see them how they are, see the artwork and the time and the skill and the craft that went into them. So it's multi-layered. Yeah.
And I find bagging and boarding very therapeutic. I'll just sit and watch TV and just bag and board, peel back the resealable bag or get out the Scotch tape. And in doing this show, and this is a really great segue, I'm glad you teed that up for me, is I started for Terence and Ryan and myself to kind of keep us sane of like, okay, what's the next issue? I started going through and like, all right, here's all the Robin issues in order, and here's the crossovers, and here's all this stuff. One book that we missed that I don't know if it was something I thought we'd come back around to later, but we skipped over Robin Annual number 2, Bloodlines, Earth Plague. Dun dun dun. I'm to find some sinister music here, because Terrence had pointed out that the next chronologically issued Tim Drake story that we're going to cover, it's like, oh, he hops over into the Catwoman book. And then I see Razor Sharp in there, and you had said, hey, we should probably do that Robin 2 annuals, kind of tie the two together. And I was like, oh, I'm sure we did that. Sure enough, I scrolled back through the podcast, and I had skipped it. So we're going to jump back to 1993, and at a time where Nightfall is a thing. Robin is out of the Batcave. There is no Robin ongoing series yet. We're like right in between Robin 2 and Robin 3 Cry of the Huntress era, along with the whole Nightfall thing. And we're going to look at this. Chuck Dixon, of course, and I don't know, Dreyer, I think is his name, and Garcia Lopez front cover here of Robin Annual 2, Bloodlines, Earth Plague, Razor Sharp cuts in. So I didn't have a whole lot of history with Bloodlines. I think the only other Bloodlines issue that I have, I believe, is Batman, if I remember correctly. So I'm going to look here real quick while I kick the mic over to you. So what connection do you have with Bloodlines? And I do have a little synopsis, unless you've got one that you've kind of have known just from reading more than what I have in it.
Well, I could just kind of spitball a little bit here, and with a little help from Wikipedia, about what was going on. So 93, for those of you who are not around or not a part of it, or those of you who were and want to go down memory lane, this is when Image Comics was starting and was just huge. Like, Image just blew everything out of the water, and DC was really hurting. Like, DC was thought of as kind of like a dinosaur, the old man in the room, not very fresh, not, very stale, which I guess is not very fresh. And a lot of that was warranted. As much as I love DC and was a DC guy and always read DC, a lot of that was kind of true. And when Image Comics took off, they just went through the market. Valiant Comics came out soon. Like, DC was like, some months they were the third leading publisher, sometimes the fourth or fifth. Like, it was bad times for DC.
Right.
And really, the only traction DC really got was killing Superman and breaking Batman's back, and then it became like a cliche. Oh, let's make Green Lantern go crazy. Let's kill everybody. Let's kill Green Arrow. Let's kill this guy. And it was kind of like, people were like, all right, that was good for DC, but really that's all you could do is just kill a character. Like, you come up with something new. And also at this time, there was a lot of money being thrown into comic books from people who knew nothing about comics, but just knew they were making money, and you could probably get a TV series or a movie that could make a lot of money. So you had a lot of startup capital creating comic books, like Malibu Comics. But,
wow.
Before this, if you started a new comic book company, it was usually one guy or one writer and artist team, and they were starting with one book, and they were starting small, and kind of like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or Cerebus, the Aardvark guy, and it would grow and grow and grow, and maybe it might become something. Now, all of a sudden, you had millions of dollars being thrown into a company saying, yeah, let's start up a company, let's throw out some books, let's hire people, hey, let's get the best, so let's pay them more. So DC was losing a lot of its talent. I mean, this is where Noam Brayfogle went over and started Prime and stuff. So there was not a lot of talent around to actually pick up the baton, if you will, and run with it. A lot of guys were being hired who just had no experience, weren't that good, but they needed somebody. And actually, another YouTuber who I like, his name's Comic Tropes, did a whole thing on the Bloodlines and this era that was really good. So basically, DC is trying at this point to just kind of throw everything up against the wall and see what will stick. And so they had this idea with their annuals. Hey, let's create this alien that is like sucking people's spinal fluid, but not all the people die from it. Some of them get powers, and then we'll have all these new characters, and maybe one of them or two of them can compete with Image, and we might have something. And they really didn't. The vast majority of these characters were just forgettable. They, like I said, they didn't have the top talent creating them. The only character from this line that had anything was in the Demon Annual. It introduced the character Hitman, and then Hitman had a Garth Ennis run. I think it was a Vertigo run that ran for about 60 or so issues that was somewhat popular. That's it. All the rest were forgotten about. They had some other issues that was started Bloodlines and ended lines. The one, I think the last issue called Bloodbath has long-haired Superman and Asbats on the cover. So that's kind of fun. If you pull up Wikipedia right now, that's what shows up. Most of these characters get killed off here and there, or they showed up in the Blackest Night as a dead character. In fact, the one was it Razor Sharp? Is that her?
Yeah.
She showed up in Blackest Night as already being dead, and that kind of is it. An interesting side note: I heard Rob Liefeld say that he felt like DC was trying to copy Youngblood, and that's why it was Bloodlines. And I think that was Rob just imagining a bit, because unless I heard somebody from DC actually say, yeah, that's why we did that. The blood has been around for a while. It's been used for a while. Rob Liefeld didn't invent blood, although he probably thinks he did. But he, so blood, that's a stretch. Although the Image guys did the same thing. If you notice, the Image guys, all of their books are very similar alphabetically to the books that they were leaving Marvel from. So that way on the comic book shelves, it would be right there. So Spawn starts the same as Spider-Man, and Youngblood starts with a Y right next to where the X books are for X-Force, and, Wildcats, Jim Lee, W, X, Y, Z. There's a correlation there. So maybe because that's what he was doing, that's what he was thinking when he saw blood. But I don't know, maybe who knows what was going on at that time. The Robin annual, you could see Chuck Dixon was trying to create some characters that would fit with sort of Tim Drake, teenage hero, teenage group. I actually thought, I can't even remember a lot of these, but I actually thought that the Robin characters were probably the better characters out of some of these, and then they will make an appearance in Catwoman 25 again, which is why we're doing these books together in this podcast. And a side note, my last side note here, or this is a side note to my side note, some of these heroes joined a group called the Blood Pack to try to boost sales. I'm not sure what year that was. Oh, September 2011. That's what it was. In September 2011, the New 52 with the reboot continuity tried to bring back some of these characters. It was a six issue miniseries, and they changed it where they had a meteor crash to Earth, and that brought some of the powers. I mean, a lot of the people died, but some of them had powers, and I feel like that series kind of came and went, and no one really cared. So I don't foresee a rebirth Bloodlines, but who knows? They may show up in Wonder Comics or something like that. You never know. Yeah.
I thought, again, with only having 2 issues from this, just in the Robin perspective of things, I think these characters don't feel, at least in the 2 stories that we're reading, and more importantly in the Robin one, I don't feel like these are forced, this is part of an event, other than the creature interacting with them. These just sound like a group of teens that Robin would have to track down or battle against or work with, and then they're one and dones. I don't feel as they were part, okay, this has to be something that ties in. I think Chuck does a very good way, whether he was all right, I got to do this annual, and you can go, well, it's not in a Robin series at all, so I think it probably lends itself more to a nice one and done story. That if the long way I'm trying to say this is, reading this, I didn't feel like I was missing anything. I have no idea what any of these characters are doing. I'm completely lost, that I get a beginning and a middle, the end, and I didn't feel like I had to rush out to the store and go, whoa, wait, I've got issue 19 out of 45. I'm completely lost. I read this back in 93 and enjoyed it. And getting ready for this podcast, I looked at it and went, I enjoyed it as much as I did in 93, and I didn't feel the need to go run down and check out the other Bloodline issues.
And correct me if I'm wrong, didn't this annual come out before Robin issue number 1 of the regular series?
Yes.
I think so. Yep. Robin had 2 annuals out before a regular series. That's kind of unique. But it's cool too. I don't know if you're done with the Bloodline stuff here, but if not, we can come back to it. But I'll segue into the cover. The cover for the annual is done by Jim Balent, right?
Yeah, Jim Ballant. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's kind of funny that then he's the artist on Robin 25. Although this cover, I would say, maybe PG rated, because maybe the monsters might scare young children, so we won't give it a G, but it's definitely family friendly, sort of. Robin 25 looks like it Catwoman 25 looks like it belongs in like the high adult section part, where you put the where the kids can't reach it and like the little kids get to it. It's a little different vibe on the covers we'll be looking at today. Yeah.
Some fellow podcasters that I listen to, Michael Bailey and Shag Matthews and Andrew Leyland, all refer to Jim Ballant as this is drawn by I Like Big Boobs Jim Ballant.
Yeah, I mean, didn't he do? I heard somewhere that he did like softcore pornography comics after his run on DC Comics. So
I don't know if that's true, but I have also heard that as well. And I mean, I could understand why. I guess.
Yeah, he just figured, let's just I'm halfway there. Let's just go the full mile. Yeah.
Yeah, well, let's get into Bloodlines. Robin Annual number 2 from 1993, and this is a rather thick book. So what we normally typically do on the show, we go through almost page by page and kind of talk about things. We'll be here all day if we do that. I've got some notes that I've written down previously that we'll go through, and then just other parts of the story that maybe both of us are kind of going through. So we might zip around the book a little bit. The opening page of Tim Drake falling, which we say a lot, and I just heard a little plug for another TVU show, Batgirl to Oracle. Stella just interviewed Chuck Dixon on her show. I'm going to forget the issue number here, but it was Birds of Prey, where Dick and Barbara, while she's Oracle, are on the trapeze on the very front cover. It's that issue. And he talks about he always likes to start his stories with an action beat. And I love the opening, like, inner monologue of Tim, where he says, "How am I doing so far? Well, I just got thrown off a 13th floor of the Kaiser building, and I'm just heading past the 12th floor. So I'd have to say off to so far, so good." And then it goes into like explaining as he's falling, and then does the whole, well, let me tell you how I got here. So I really like this opening sequence. What'd you think about just Tim's dialogue? And just, I love the art and the perspective of the splash page of Tim falling. You see the look on his face of like, oh, holy crap, I think I'm probably going to die right here. So what'd you think of this? Just 2 single pages before we move farther in the book.
Yeah, and like you said, I have the digital copy. I have the print copy somewhere, but I couldn't find it, so I bought it digitally this morning, and it's 65 pages long digitally. So yeah, we can't go into every single page, but we're going to anyway. No, but this reminded me a little bit of Watchmen in the beginning with what's his face? I blanked on him. The comedian. That's who it is.
Yeah.
I was going to say Smiley Face Man. I couldn't think of his name. But the guy's got the button being thrown out the window. But this is almost this might be sacrilege, but it's almost better because it's a full page. Like it's a full splash page, just as far as artwork wise better, because in Watchmen you never get that full splash page. It's all these little small panels of it. So it's such a great way to start the issue, because Tim Drake is not going to die in the first page of Robin Annual 2, right? But it does pique your interest of, well, how did he get here? Why is he in this predicament? What events led here? So it does draw you in. It does make you want to read the story, and it does make you think, all right, how's he going to get out of this? Because he's going to survive, but it does have that, okay, what's the plan here? So I thought this was great. And in fact, the art is Kieran Dwyer. Is that who it is? And I can't remember exactly what else I've seen him do, but I always remember liking his art and thinking his art was really good and really solid. And it always surprises me when there's really good art in an annual, because sometimes I feel like these annuals are sometimes throwaways or rush jobs or things like that. I like on the second page how Robin throws the grappling hook and he hits this like gargoyle kind of like thing. It's not really a gargoyle, but it's just like a
protrusion,
ledge. Yeah. And it breaks and it falls and it keeps falling. Like I love that. Like in Superman Returns, when like he tries to grab the wing of the plane and the wing breaks. Like I like stuff like that where there's a little more to it than just easy peasy for the hero. And then we go into the title page, which I felt a little bit like did they go and get Mr. Freeze to write some of this? Because the title's called Looking Sharp. I could just hear the Mr. Freeze like, Looking Sharp. And then on the cover, and Chuck Dixon does not put the stuff on the cover. The cover editor will put it, but it's like razor sharp cuts in, like razor sharp cuts in. I need to see you. Yeah, it's just the bad puns are bad. Yeah.
Really quick, I looked up Kevin Dwyer. Some stuff that he's done is Captain America, X-Force, has done some Batman run, Lobo, Guardians of the Galaxy.
Lobo, that's where I know him from. Yeah, that's where it is. Yeah. And the next couple page, he does a great job making Gotham City look like a seedy, rat-infested, just nasty place to be.
I mean, there's a syringe, bottles, lit cigarettes.
It looks like a dead rat, yeah.
Yeah. The beer that's on tap, I don't know if you saw this, is King Kirby beer, which I thought that was kind of cool. But I feel like this lady that's walking here in the green cloak, she's going down crime alley, specifically to lure people, which I wanted to ask you about this creature. Again, this is probably the only spot in Bloodlines that's the same creature that's on front with the blood oozing out of its mouth. This is the creature in the Bloodline stories that is going around is activating the metagene in potentially some of these people, and it's also the thing that the police is going through. It's draining their spinal fluid. They've got a couple holes in the back of their neck. Am I correct in saying that this creature is also killing and causing the metagene to be activated in people?
Yeah, and I could be wrong. If memory serves me right, the creature's there to drink our spinal fluid. But in some people, because of... Now, Marvel's mutant, so DC's version, where they call it the metagene, because some people have a metagene. When the alien does the extraction of the spinal fluid, it causes people's metagenes to activate, and they don't die, and they actually get powers, but each person gets a different power. So this creature... I think now about it the way I thought about it back then. Sigourney Weaver and her lawyers and who was the guy who made Alien or whoever that was need to sue DC because is it called the xenomorph in Aliens? Is that what they call it? Yeah. This is just a knockoff of a xenomorph in like every way, shape, and form, basically.
The name of this, and I'm probably going to say it, Venev, Venev. Venev was one of many alien parasites that came to Earth during the events of Bloodlines to feed on human spinal fluid. So that's just the quick read-up on this that I got from DCFandom.com or the DC Wikia page. The gender is female, eyes white, hair none, skin color green, So that's other than this, it's the only appearance of this creature that we're going to see. Well, I guess there is one more appearance in a warehouse in a little bit. So it's a little plot device in the whole overarching Bloodline story, but Dixon, I think, plays it pretty well of going, all right, so I'm going to tie this annual into it, but I'm going to tell a story of what happens to these individuals, and I'm going to give the metagene power to two of them, so we can go on from there.
Can I mention that on the next shot of Robin, I really, really enjoy this artwork, and I know a lot of times artists get like the oohs and the ahs when it's this big splash page and it's a battle and there's 17 heroes all fighting 15 villains and there's this giant monsters, but this art is really, really good if you have time to just kind of look at it. There's a panel of Gotham City, and the buildings are just layered like one on top of the other on top of the other, and there's like a water tower in shadow in the front, and it just gives this really great feel of the city. Then there's another scene of like Robin in the background, and there's like patio furniture in the foreground, and it just really like makes you feel like you're sitting on the patio watching Robin. And then there's another thing of Robin like looking kind of at himself, and in the background there's just like books and a vase and a clock, and like there's just a lot of detail where it would have been easy to just leave that blank or do just something real quick. And then there's this whole shot with like the glove and the mirror and Robin looking, and so I just really like that artwork. It's realistic enough that it doesn't feel ridiculous, but yet it's still got an element of, comic book, and it's not like photorealism, Alex Ross style, So I don't know if you feel the same way, but I really enjoy that artwork.
I love the artwork, especially in this page where he's in, and I had forgotten, or maybe Chuck didn't do it enough early on in the series, that he was in his dad's penthouse, which is not that far from Wayne Manor, or not from Wayne Manor, excuse me, like Wayne Tower and, some of the other Wayne buildings, that he could be right there in the city since he has been kicked out of the Batcave. But I really dug this scene where he's just standing in the costume and doing the whole, like, you talking to me, little bit. But the art is just nice and clean, and I really dig this stuff. Yeah, it's cool to see some great action shots. And as you continue to flip the page where he's going to go out on patrol, or he's flipping out the window off the fire escape and swinging out, those are great. But just the shots of him in the apartment, and even just the perspective of him when he's in the apartment, wish these pages were numbered, but when he's pointing and you get the shot from outside of the patio, and you see the patio furniture and the umbrella stand is all like this purple hue. Even that detail is really pretty good, and you get this nice little shot of Tim. So I dig that stuff as well. I'm a sucker for the action beats, but it's just nice to see the hero standing there every once in a while, and the art to be just as consistent and good as the action shots are.
Yeah, and then in the action shots, like you said, flipping out of the room and a fire escape, it really gives you a sense of height. Like, you really feel like Gotham City's really got these tall buildings and they're on top of it. So it kind of just adds to it when we meet this team. What is the team called again? I forget. What do they call themselves?
The Cyber Rats?
Rats,
yeah.
Yeah, the Cyber Rats. And it's funny because this is 93, so this is like the early days of the internet coming into our homes, where I know it'd been around forever with ARPANET and all that, but actually like coming into the public consciousness, and people actually using AOL to dial up, the internet and stuff. So it's funny to see like these terms that get added to things, and how people kind of get it kind of wrong about how the internet works in the early days. It's really fun. Yeah,
and seeing like how that was just the lingo of like, oh, I'm going to use the word cyber and hacking, and it makes it sound like it's really easy to do, or you got to be super smart and all that stuff. And the terms that you look at it now and go, it's not exactly what we would say, but in the early days where this was such a new thing, and I don't think by this point I was even really online. I don't think I got online until like 97, 98, somewhere around there. Yeah, maybe a little earlier than that, because I think I remember reading some of Bill Jet Ramey's Batman and Robin stuff, and probably more Batman forever. So maybe 94, that every once in a while I'd be able to go to like the library. I thought that was so cool, and man, this is so fast, and it wasn't fast at all.
Yeah. I like their van that has like a satellite dish on the roof. Like, that's not suspicious at all.
No, not at all. They are on, what are they on top of? The Wayne, what is this? The Wayne Tower, is that right? No, Wayne Foundation building.
Okay.
Which, like you like to point out, it's got that Anton First spire at the top of it, and this dome setting where the Cyber Rats are up here working on. And all the rats' names are Channel, Hack Rat, Megabiter, which I think is kind of funny, and then Razor Sharp, and it's all derivative of each of their names. Ray is the girl ends up getting the razor sharp claws that cuts in.
Yeah, that's kind of ironic.
Just a little.
I just wanted to point out that we were talking about the Cyber Rats, but cyber is spelled PSYBA because they're wearing backpacks that has the Cyber Rats and has a logo, so they had merch even back then. But PSY, like Cyforce, like brain power, was a very popular thing back then too. So it's kind of a play on cyber and psychological powers or something. But I mean, they make it obvious that they're up to no good. They've got a satellite dish on the roof of their van. They're wearing their own merch, and I mean, it's just kind of funny.
And they're all in their own onesies that are purple, blue, and black. And although I got to say, a channel here that is hooking into the the oversized security camera with like a big cell phone. If you rewind the show back when Tim Drake is hacking a payphone with this huge device, and we were like, how is he going to fit that in his utility belt?
Yeah.
Hook it up to a payphone. At least the technology has gotten a little bit better. It's a little it's a little smaller. So we'll go through this section a little quicker here. This is Robin on top of the building. He scales up the top of the building behind the cyber rats, goes to catch him, and then they all proceed to jump off. And Robin thinks, oh no, they're going to commit suicide, and grabs hold of Channel, I believe, here. And he finds out that they're parachuting off, that they're base jumping is what he originally assumes is happening. And he gets sprayed with mace. And they all get back in the van and race off. And this is where Tim does his detective work and finds out that they were hacking into the system. So that's a whole span of about 4 or 5 pages there. But I think Dixon does a really good job of getting nice little character moments. I mean, again, it's 65 pages, so he's got the benefit of being able to give you a little bit more history, even if this was only going to be a one-shot as far as Dixon goes. You get that Ray, or Razor Sharp here, is going to be the leader of the group, and that they weren't just doing this for fun and kicks, that it is for somebody else that they were working for that is going to try and get information, and that person is the Collector. So this goes through another little section here with the Collector getting upset that they didn't do the job they were supposed to, and then Megabyte ends up getting killed in the gunfire. So what'd you think about this series of sections?
Yeah, it kind of ties back into what we were talking about earlier in the show with the Collector and collecting, unless you cut all that out because it hurt your feelings, Rob. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, it does the job of moving the story along. There's nothing too great. It's kind of like when I'm watching The Flash on the CW, and we're like 20 minutes in, and he confronts the villain like, okay, Flash isn't going to catch him this time because we still got 40 minutes of the show left. So this is where the Flash gets beat and the villain runs away, and then we figure something out, which will help Flash catch them the next time. But I do like the little twist that they are working for someone, and that it is the Collector, and it does, kind of pique my interest of what's going on here. And I do like that Robin is not perfect either. Like, he's still learning, he's still making mistakes, and this was kind of one that he probably wish he could have a do-over with. So yeah, it's a great scene to serve the function of the overall story.
And it's funny, as I flip the page here, and I know you're reading this digitally, and normally I don't pull out the ads as we're talking about it, but the section right after this where they're running through the warehouse and the alien is going to go catch them. Sorry, I don't want to get sued either, but
yeah,
Sigourney Weaver's probably up for a fat paycheck here. But it says, appearing in person, grand opening, Anaheim, California, Mile High Comics, store number 2, appearing as Jim Shooter, founder of Deviant, and Rob Liefeld.
Yeah.
From Extreme. So I thought that was funny. We were just talking about him. Yeah, Defiant Comics and then Image Comics for Mile High Comics store opening number 2. So I thought that I would just throw that out there.
I wonder if Mile High still has that California store. I don't know. I
think they're just down to the one now. I think he moved all of his location to the first Denver store. So I think Mile High, that one's no longer in existence, if I remember that correctly.
They were always so famous. Like, every comic book would have an ad for Mile High and back issues. And I went to Denver once and only once, and I did not go to Mile High Comics. I kind of kicking myself now. I wish I would have seen that. But they're legendary, yeah.
Yeah. This next part of sections is reminiscent of Batman Year One a little bit, where they're going through the warehouse. The Collector's guards are doing the whole, like, hey, come out, you don't have to hide, we just want to talk to you, after they just killed one of their friends, and of course they're going to try and kill Ray and Channel here, but they get bitten by the Xenozoic. The art is in oranges, purples, and blues, and you see the creature's mouth open right up at Ray, and then as she's closing her eyes, the panels slowly start getting darker and darker, and then you get like this flash on the bottom. Again, sorry for the page numbers here not being in here, but it's really kind of like a little terrifying shot here of all 4 arms going up against the back part of Ray, and that mouth coming out from the inside of its other mouth, getting ready to pierce her in the back of the neck. And at one point, it looks like it rips the back of her costume or her jacket to be able to bite her through. And I thought that was really really kind of a creepy set of panels there, even back in '93. So again, we won't spend too much time on this, but what'd you think of this little section here?
It's kind of feels a little bit like the movie Aquaman, where it's like light and fun and kind of an action adventure, and then they go to the is it the trench or the
trench,
and it just takes a turn, and all of a sudden you're in a horror movie, but it still actually works and fits and does well. So yeah, the paneling, the layout, everything, it's a little. That stuff's all great. Let me finish my sentence. What I thought was a little weird was the collector's reaction of just like pulling out guns and trying to murder the cyber rats. It kind of seemed a little over the top and over dramatic, and it's just a little weird and not well thought out because they are able to run away and stuff. So
yeah,
that was kind of like, what is going on here a little bit? But then, it was a good setup for the Xenomorph copy to get them. And then, Was the North Face a company back in the 90s, or...
I'm glad you brought that up. In the notes that I have here, and I wrote down some stuff of like pop culture things that you're going to see in this, is they mentioned Sears, they mentioned Letterman. One of the Cyber Rats in a little bit is going to be wearing a Janet Jackson Rhythm Nation shirt. They mentioned Eggo waffles, and then North Face. So I was looking last night, and I'm going to do it really quick. I think North Face has been around since 1965. If I remember that correctly, so I'm looking really quick.
Well, apparently the Drakes have a North Face account because Tim likes to shop there, yep.
Yeah, and if I have that right, that they've been around since 1968 is when they were founded in San Diego, California. And this is not a logo of North Face at all. I was looking at a lot of their old logos, and most of them all look like where it has the word North Face written right on top of each other with like the little half rainbow or, quarter circle coming out of the E, H, and E from North Face. So this was never a logo, so this would be something that'd be fun if we get a chance to talk to Chuck Dixon again. Was this a happy accident? Was this the artist that was doing this? And I've been cataloging lately a lot of the Chuck Dixon in-universe restaurants and sober cola and those type of things. And I thought, North Face is one of them too. And I'm like, wait a minute, that's a real thing from our world. So I'm glad you brought that up too.
And to fill in, if people don't have the issue in front of them, what we're talking about. And I really like this part because it shows Tim Drake doing some detective work. Tim goes to a store undercover called the North Face, and then he hacks online and is able to get the real names for the code names with the cyber rats. And I like it. I always love it when they're doing detective work. So, and I guess the news out of Hollywood is that the Matt Reeves the Batman is going to focus him on the detective side of Batman. Yeah. So I was just thrilled when I heard that. So
yeah, that's some of the stuff that I think is really missing in a lot of the movies, at least with Batman. If he's the world's greatest detective, I want to be sitting in the movie theater or even with Robin and trying to figure out, get a little bit of pieces like, can you solve it before Batman? Or when, like in Batman Forever, it's just a series of riddles that make no sense whatsoever, but it makes sense in the world. I'm like, that's not solving anything. At least in The Dark Knight, they were taking parts of the bullet and scanning them and getting thumbprints. I'm like, okay, that's some legitimate detective work, but I'd like to see, a long stretch. And I appreciate that Dixon does that so effectively. So going through these next couple sections, you get the GCPD right before that, seeing the murder scene or what's been going on, Tim's sleuthliness, if I could say that word, and Ray getting her first morphing sensation is the wrong word, but turning into a metahuman and getting her razor sharp arms. So it's affecting her. She's got these hot and cold sweats, and her partner, which I'm blanking on his name, I've got it written right here, that is Hackrat, yeah. And then Channel, he's been in a coma and unresponsive, he's breathing, so they don't know if he's dead, and then his face ends up showing up on a TV screen. He can kind of manipulate what is going on the TV, almost like a Max Headroom type of a sentient being, which his body isn't living, but his mind is, and it's in the TV. So I thought this was kind of clever for the time. And I was trying to remember if Max Headroom was a thing in 93 still.
Oh, yeah.
So
I mean, he was bigger in the early 80s, or mid 80s, I should say, the late 80s, where he did those Pepsi commercials and stuff. But, oh, yeah, Max Headroom. This is total Max Headroom. Yeah.
I liked that section as well. And then Tim is able to find out, okay, here's what the Cyber Rats were doing. They were trying to get information from the Wayne Foundation. So if Tim can put out another lead of like, here's some information that somebody was wanting. If I can get a hold of that person, then maybe I can find out who the Cyber Rats were trying to get their information from, or where that information was even going. And I like his code name that he uses is Das Boot, which I thought that was kind of funny.
Oh, that was a running joke in my family because they went to see that movie and it was so boring. And they'd always the person who suggested it would always get grief from it. Like every time he suggested something, but isn't another Das Boot, is it? But who's the guy wearing the Janet Jackson Rhythm Nation shirt in the scene where we first meet Max Headroom or Hack Rat or whatever he's called?
That is Hack Rat.
That is Hack Rat. Does he faint? Because
yes.
in that okay, so that's what he faints there because it's just got him just like laying there on the ground. It's really weird.
Yeah,
it's a really weird panel layout. This part, the art feels a bit rushed.
Yeah. And I was looking for a while reading it last night, especially when Ray is going through her transformation of getting her blades for the first time. Her face just, I don't want to say awful, but it does really feel rushed. She doesn't look like a teenager in this. Hack Rat doesn't look so bad, but she almost looks like she's 40, and she's only supposed to be, 16, 17, I think.
And she's wearing like boxer shorts and a white tank top. It's a weird...
Yeah.
And he's like the fainted guy's wearing all green. He's got green sneakers, green pants, green socks, green shirt. They must have had some extra green ink at DC Comics. And it's weird, too. She wakes up, and Hack Rat is on 6 different monitors all around her bed. Mm-hmm. Like, how many monitors did she need around her to sleep? Like, it's just weird, yeah.
Yeah. And then there's references to I Dream of Jeannie, Gilligan's Island. They make mention of Ponderosa and Freddy Krueger, the Brady Bunch. So you don't see all of them other than I Dream of Jeannie and channels also Gilligan from Gilligan's Island here. So I thought this was a nice little funny section. And the gist of this is Ray realizing, I don't know what's happening to us. We've lost, and Megabyte's been killed, and the Collector's trying to kill us. So she's going to be on a vendetta to either get this information so she can have a chance to kill the Collector. Robin and the Cyber Rats paths are going to cross here pretty quickly. So anything else you have to say on this little section before we basically get to the end of the story, because things kind of move pretty swiftly throughout here?
Not too much, other than I guess Gilligan's Island and I Dream of Jeannie can get together with Sigourney Weaver and aliens and do a class action lawsuit for copyright infringement. But you are right, the artwork, it changes. Like right when we get to the scene where they're eating pizza, the Razor Sharp looks like a 50-year-old man sitting there, and and it just, she looks awful on these next couple scenes here, and just looks like, just age-wise, age 20, 30, 40 years. And Hack Rat looks different every panel. Like his weight keeps changing, his appearance, everything. So it must be hard to do a 65-page comic and get it out and all that. And there's definitely panels like that. Then after that, there's a scene of Robin looking up at a building, and this building must have, I don't know 60 windows on it or so in here. Like, so obviously you can definitely see some panels where time was taken to get it just right, but you can also see some things that were rushed or very inconsistent. And I think that's part of the time as well. This was a time where they were in 93, where they're trying to churn out lots of comics, sell lots of comics, and they don't have the artists and talent like they did because of all the independent comics and Image and Marvel taking so much of the talent, that you see a lot of inconsistencies. Or you could see like, all right, so this guy spent a week on this page and then rushed through these next 11 because he spent so much time on that page. And this book, that's interesting, there's 7 different inkers and 4 different pencilers, so
right.
There was a lot of that in the 90s.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's I think you said it best. The last half of this book, panel inconsistency, is really kind of all over the place. Some panels are very good, and others, a lot of them with Ray, I don't think are done very well. Again, that's not me saying somebody's doing a horrible job, because I don't know if I would have been able to pull this off. So I can understand having to do 65 pages, and this is an annual. This isn't even your normal book you're working on. And this is a Robin annual that's not even part of a normal series, too. So we need an annual for a book that doesn't exist. This is the second one of those. So I can get some of those shortcomings, and I can also understand that this is 65 pages when normally our washing machine just made a whole horrible noise. I'm like, oh my gosh, sorry.
Did your washing machine make a horrible noise, or did your wife pick it up and throw it at you? Because it sounded like the xenomorph was crashing through your house coming for your spinal fluid. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Hold on 1 second. Are you all right?
Yes.
Do you got to go?
Tell you what, let's do it. You want to pick this up later?
Sure. We're on the scene where Bane comes in.
Okay. All right, we'll do that.
Wake up, little Betty Buys. Have you been Betty Bye?
Catwoman!
I'd advise you to yap as little as possible, boys. You've been encased in an enormous echo chamber weighing 2 tons. Every sound in there will be magnified 10 million times. Even your breathing will sound like thunder. And don't bother looking for your utility belt. I've had it burned.
So what's the purpose, CW?
It's so that the drip... Why can't I get good help? Mo, turn on the faucet. I'm sure you recognize this as a variation of the legendary Chinese water torture. When I throw that switch, the noise will become excruciating, and your eardrums will be shattered. Shortly following that, your brains will be turned into yuck, and then I shall return. And then you can be mine forever, Batman. True, I'll have to sacrifice your intellect. Oh, well. With a build like yours, who cares? After all, one can't have one's cake and, eat it, too. Ta-ta.
What sounds? Will Batman be reduced to a handsome robot fit only to serve Catwoman? Is Robin to become little more than a cuddly teddy bear for Edie? The answer to these and other ear-shattering questions tomorrow. Same cat time, same cat channel.
Thanks for listening to Robin, Everyone Loves the Drake podcast. This has been brought to you by the BatmanUniverse.net. Tim Drake, Robin, and all Batman-related characters are under copyright of DC Comics. This podcast is solely for entertainment purposes, so no infringement is intended by this show. This show is not a good revenue stream. Actually, there's not a stream at all. All music and sound clips are under copyright by their respected copyright holders, so there should be no need to send the Penguins lawyers after us for ill-gotten gains because there are none. You can get a hold of the show a few different ways. We are on Twitter at ELTD Podcast. You can also email in at robineltdpodcast@yahoo.com. Our Facebook page can be found at www.facebook.com/everyonelovesthedrake. And as always, you can message directly over at the BatmanUniverse.net. So email, tweet, or message us. We'd love to hear from you, and we'll read your comments or responses on the show. The show you're listening to can be found a few different ways through iTunes and Windows Media, also over at our host, TBU. Leave us a review on iTunes if you listen there. It'll help spread the word of the show. Make sure you head over to the BatmanUniverse.net, your home for all things Batman and Robin. Thanks for listening to the show and hearing why everyone loves the Drake. We'll see you in a few weeks. Take care.